Governor Beasley, the demand for your product is going through the roof. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In fact, we are 50% of the resources we need. We now, because of all the crises that we're talking about, from conflict to climate to COVID, and now Ukraine, we are about $10 billion short of what we need.
Okay, so this $5 billion, we're appropriators, so I'm not much of a farmer, but I want to help people help themselves. That's the whole point of this hearing. The $5 billion helps, but it's not enough by itself.
That's correct.
Okay, what I want to know is, what did the GCC nations give to causes like this?
This year has not been much compared to what the United States.
So every time you go to the gas pump, these folks are getting rich. They're our allies in problem areas too. But so I want the subcommittee not only to fill in the gap that Governor Beasley has with American taxpayer dollars. I want us as a group, Mr. Chairman, to call in our allies and say, you need to help too. In terms of Europe, how do they do?
Germany has really stepped up compared to where they were. About 7 or 8 years ago, they were at 350 million. Now they're at 1.4 billion. I've spoken to the Bundestag on a number of occasions.
What about the European Union?
The European
represents
Union,
all of Europe.
in my opinion, has stepped up, but it can do more.
Do you know what they give?
To us, it's about $500 to $600 million.
Okay, now they're the same amount of people as the United States. So
Correct.
We're going to visit these other groups. I'm going to make an argument to the American taxpayer. We need to spend this money and spend it now for the reasons you said. But I promised the American taxpayer we're going to rattle some cages. So to the president of our African bank, you've been very impressive in your presentation. How has COVID hurt the economy in Africa?
Well, thank you very much, Distinguished Senator. COVID situation is really hurt Africa quite a lot. Of course, economic growth rates actually declined by roughly 1.5% as a result of that, the lockdowns, and you couldn't get trade going and all of that. And we had roughly about 26 million people that fell further into poverty as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And roughly 30 million people actually lost their jobs. So the impact is beyond just the amount of disease of people that actually died from it. So that's the impact. But in the recovery of Africa for that, it's been rather muted compared to the other parts of the world. We project that economies will probably grow back about 5.1%. But the real issue is, how do we ensure that we don't have a divergence in the growth rates of the developed countries and the developing countries such as Africa? The big issue there is access to vaccines. And as you know, right now we have only 16% of Africa's population is actually vaccinated, fully vaccinated. And if you look at that compared to developed economies, countries in the world, Australia is about 83%. If you look at the United States, you're so high here. You look at Europe, well over almost 70%. So the issue is access to vaccine. A lot of work is being done, Distinguished Senator, in terms of local manufacturing of vaccines in Africa. That ought to be promoted. But I do think that we got to make sure that we prepare not only for this particular COVID situation, but we build what I call Africa Healthcare Defense System, which will have to be predicated on three factors, three areas. One is build Africa's pharmaceutical industry, which is very critical. We import over 80-90% of pharmaceutical products in Africa, which is not acceptable. The second thing is to make sure we build local vaccine manufacturing capacity. And third one, and most critical, is the issue of health infrastructure, primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, and tertiary healthcare, especially also diagnostic infrastructure. I know that when you came, Senator Graham, to Abidjan, and we had a conversation over dinner, the whole issue was around infrastructure. And this is one area of infrastructure that we think is critical, infrastructure for life.
Well, one of the things I learned on the trip from the Gates Foundation, there was a single mother, I think, with 4 daughters, and where the power lines go, everything changes. As you build the road and build the power system, you can get products to market better. Drought-resistant seeds were used by this by this young woman, and her yields were 10 times what they were before because she was using technology. They moved the cow out of the house into its own place, and that improved the healthcare environment. They were able to get some disposable income and didn't have to walk 5 or 6 miles a day to get water. So, infrastructure really is important to economic development, particularly on the food side. Ms. McKenna, the Global Fund has been, I think, a good success
Yes.
where money has been matched. Do you see a need for something like that in the food security space?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Multilateral action is key. And what is concerning is that we have seen some countries kind of take away aid from places like Yemen or Syria in order to support responses in the Ukraine. And the answer is more, including private sector and other motivations. It's not less or moving it around.
Senator, can I add real quick? I pulled up the two numbers on like Saudi Arabia and UAE. 3 years ago, we received from both those countries $658 million, primarily in Yemen. This year, we've received $6 million from Saudi Arabia and $0 from UAE. Wow.
Thank you.